One of my clients was struggling to match the vibe of their reference tracks. I wonder if that sounds familiar. They put together a playlist of songs with the mix that they were aiming for, and they said to me, I've nailed all of the right sounds, but when I made this playlist of references, my track just doesn't fit in. What is it that I'm doing wrong? After digging in, I realized that their approach to referencing was the issue, and it's a common mistake. When you compare your unfinished track to a fully mixed and mastered one, you're at a huge disadvantage, but there's a simple fix. Instead of overproducing to match it, you need to level the playing field. Let me show you how. First off, you want to ensure you're setting your project up for success. I often use my template that's available at the Patreon, but if you don't have it, in short, you can consolidate all of your tracks into one group. That's Command G if you're on Mac. This is imperative because you want to be able to master your track whilst actively not mastering the finished reference. Does that make sense? Otherwise, you'll continue to move the goalposts of loudness. So as you can see in my template, I have all my instruments routed to this pre-master track, with the actual final master being pretty transparent. This group will serve as your mastering channel, while the reference can go directly to here, which will have nothing on it. Another way of working is to have all of your tracks grouped together, then a separate audio track underneath. You'll add all of your mastering chain to the group track, whilst the reference will go directly to the master. Either way works just fine. Next up is to ensure that the reference track is at the right level. Remember, you're working against something that is mastered and punchy and loud. Perhaps they've used Mixio by DistroKid, which is today's sponsor, by the way. Links are in the description. Bringing this track down to the correct level is key. There are 2 meters in Ableton, a darker green which shows the peak volume and a fuller green that shows the RMS of the track. You want to ensure that the mastered reference track you're listening to matches the RMS of the demo song that you're creating. Bringing this down will help you out immensely, as you don't want to be working with something you think sounds better just because it's louder. Finally, at the early stages, I like to work with my reference track in mono with a slight telephone EQ. This is taking a technique that sound engineers use and kind of flipping it on its head. Some engineers will mix with a single or a tone sound cue, so of course this is in mono. The idea is that if you can get the track to sound full and rich on one of those, then your job's going to be made much easier on a full set of monitors. When applying it to our reference, we can ensure that we're imitating the key areas of the track that we need and generating a similar sound whilst not being overwhelmed with something that is bright and sparkly and wide. It takes just some of the pressure off whilst we're in the composition stage. When you're nearing closer to the end stages, I like to solo the lows of the reference track and A/B it with my demo, then the mids of the reference track and then the treble and so on. If any particular sounds are standing out, it gives me a better idea of where I can place my instruments or how to process them. You'll start to take notice of the width, the panning, the sub, and then the highs, and be able to assess what additions your track might need. When this track is all finished up, make sure it doesn't just go to your hard drive, get ready to release it, and use the marketing tools at DistroKid's disposal. Links are in the description. I hope that gives you some insight into how to better use reference material when working with your own projects. If I could give you a lasting piece of advice, this episode was more focused on mixing than anything else. But if you're trying to dial in your own sound and take influence from different artists, I'll often make a Frankenstein reference in my project. So this is a little bit of bonus material on composition. A Frankenstein reference is made up of maybe 2 drops from 2 different artists, a breakdown from a completely separate artist too, and an intro or outro by yet another artist. I'll repitch them to a similar key so I can hear how they sound together. I'll borrow the percussive section from one song, replicate a bass rhythm from another, fit similar chord stabs from another song, so on and so forth, until I have this amalgamation of ideas in my track. This helps me reference great arrangements without just copying one singular artist. As I pinch inspiration from multiple places, it helps you dial into a really unique sound you can build as your own. Take McGee for instance. He's obviously taken inspiration from Eric Clapton, but there's also a whole host of other artists that he builds into his sound. Thanks as always for swinging by, and I'll see you next time.